Hi, good evening. I'm Jonny Wolfson. I'm the CTO of Adaptable Tools. I'm actually going to start with a confession and finish with an ambition. So the confession is I basically built the same product 8 times for 8 financial services companies. I made good money out of it, but it really wasn't the best way of using the client's money. But the reason why I did that was because actually the way that data grids are built in banks, and we'll talk about what they are in a second, is actually very wasteful. So what happens? Well, first of all, as I guess you all know, pretty much every single financial application you'll ever come across will have a data grid. It might be called a blotter, a pivot table, but be rows and columns of data that users want to filter, search, sort, style, export, etc. So every single application will have a data grid. But the way they're built at the moment is incredibly costly. It's a 3-stage process where essentially first you choose a vendor grid control, you put your data in it, and that next stage, the 3rd stage, is when you say, what are all the cool things our users need? What are the funky features they want? The flashing cells, the export, the sorting, the filtering. And you build that yourself. It normally takes about 150 days a year, and you do that many times. One of the banks we spoke to did it over 50 times in a single calendar year. 50 different teams built essentially the same functionality, but they do it in such a way that it's tied in to whichever vendor, whichever data they're using. So if you want to move from one vendor to another, or you want to do the same thing that you did in equities for commodities or for the middle office or retail, you can't. You have to rewrite everything. So it means that no grids are standard, and it means that support need to effectively have a different learning curve for every single grid, every single application in the bank. Think of your typical trader or sales. They might have 8 systems with 8 grids, all of which look and work completely different, with different support, different everything. And generally, because you build the grid at the end, they miss key features. And they don't take any account of regs and compliance, which is obviously increasingly important. So what do? Well, we built something called the Adaptable Blotter. It's not a data grid itself, it's an add-on. It sits on top of all the major data grids in the market, but it's data agnostic, so you can fire any data into it at all, and all our features just work. We've got the most powerful set of features in the market, which work across all the vendors. So what does that mean? Well, if you look at the problems we had before, now every system's identical. You can have one installation for a huge bank. It doesn't matter, there's no vendor, there's no data lock-in. You've got standardization, all your grids will look and work the same. So once you know how to make something in one, you can do it in your others. You can share things between teams, between systems. And we've got the best of breed. They're just some of the functions. And where are we? So the market is huge. Just to give you a sense, we are talking literally about every single financial desktop anywhere in the world, many times over. There's not a single user anywhere in financial services that doesn't have a grid. So far, we've got 15 companies actively using it across all types of the financial sector. But in fact, there's also a huge secondary market. Think about law, retail, pretty much any single person who wants to manipulate, who wants to shape, who wants to filter, who wants to sort their data, can use our product, save money, and become massively more productive and efficient. We have an annual license model. We're also integrating with many other partners, including some in the room, to provide the most integrated, powerful, across-the-board solution. And finally, the ambition. Well, I said standardization, but we're friends here. We really mean monopoly, don't we? Basically, on every financial desktop, there's a spreadsheet, there's a news feed, and there's a data grid. 2 companies, who I've mentioned here, have kind of the first 2 monopolies. Our ambition is to be so powerful, so feature-rich, that basically every single worker in financial services will have an adaptable blotter on their desktop. You can find out more. I've got some goodies outside if you want to take something home. And I'll take questions. Thank you for listening.
At risk of unmasking myself as either an idiot or an imposter, what is a data grid?
So a data grid is, think of Excel, think of where you've got, but it's inside a system. So it's rows and columns of data. You have a header, you have columns, and you have data, and you have all your data. And that's basically what you might use to search or filter. Pretty much every single application. If you think of like your typical trader or sales, go to Google and look up trader, you will see a guy with 8 screens, and every single one will have these rows and columns of data. And what we do is we sit on top of all of those, irrespective of whoever built the system, irrespective of the provider, and we provide a unique, rich set of features which allow them to do more.
Okay, thank you very much.